In the movie Upgrade, a man named Gray was a mechanic who lost everything after a terrible accident. Gray ended up paralyzed and hopeless. However, a strange inventor named Aaron offered him a chance to regain his life with a powerful AI chip. This chip gave Gray incredible abilities, but it also changed everything. What will Gray do with this new power? The film starts by introducing Gray, the main character, who worked as a mechanic. His wife was employed at a large technology company and drove an electric car, while Gray was fixing a car that belonged to one of his regular customers. He needed to return the car to this customer on the same day, so Gray convinced his wife to join him on the ride, planning to come back in her electric car afterward. They drove in 2 separate cars, with Gray's wife following him in her electric car. When they arrived, Gray saw his wife with a man named Aaron. She was surprised to see Aaron there, and asked Gray why he hadn't told her he was taking her to meet Aaron. Aaron was one of Gray's regular customers, and his personality was shown as odd. He didn't even know how to greet others because he rarely left his large home. Aaron spent most of his time indoors, constantly inventing new things. One of his creations was an AI chip, a powerful piece of technology that could achieve extraordinary tasks. Aaron demonstrated the chip to them, explaining its capabilities. After seeing the invention, Gray and his wife headed home. Suddenly, their electric car veered off course. Gray noticed the car was on the wrong path, and his wife instructed it to return to their home's route. The car responded, indicating there was an issue. Gray tried to stop the vehicle manually, pressing the brake, but the car wouldn't stop. Instead, it picked up speed. Despite their efforts, the car crashed into a speed breaker and flipped over. Luckily, they survived the accident without any serious injuries and attempted to escape from the overturned vehicle. A car pulled up near them, and 4 people got out. They approached Gray and his wife as the police drone tried to identify the assailants but failed. Gray pleaded with them, offering money in exchange for their safety, but the attackers ignored him. One of the men shot Gray's wife, and then they severely injured Gray by breaking his spinal cord, rendering him unable to move. Gray's wife suffered intense pain, and he was helpless as he lay paralyzed, watching her die in front of him. The next scene showed Gray in a hospital, where he stayed for 3 months. When he returned home, he was confined to a wheelchair, paralyzed from his injuries. Robotic machines performed all his daily tasks, and his mother took care of him. Gray felt uncomfortable with his mother looking after him. One day, Gray and his mother met a detective. Gray asked her about his wife's killers, and the detective informed him that the culprits remained unidentified. She assured him that the police were still investigating, but Gray felt disheartened, as he had been hearing this for a long time. Gray became hopeless and no longer wished to continue living like this. He used one of the robotic machines to take an overdose of his medication, leading to his return to the hospital. During his stay, Aaron, his regular customer, came to visit him. Aaron brought Gray a glimmer of hope, reminding him of the AI chip he had once shown him. He offered to insert the chip into Gray's spine, promising that it would allow him to walk again and gain new abilities. Initially, Gray rejected the offer, saying he had no desire to live anymore. Aaron asked him to think about what his wife would have wanted. After reconsidering, Gray agreed to Aaron's proposal. It was then revealed that Aaron had ulterior motives. He wanted to test his AI chip on someone. Since the government didn't permit such experiments, Aaron planned to carry out the procedure in secret at his home. He successfully inserted the chip into Gray's spinal cord. As Gray recovered in the following days, a doctor examined him, attempting to see if he could feel any sensation in his hands or feet. At first, it seemed as though the AI chip wouldn't work right away. However, as the doctor continued the tests, Gray suddenly began to move his hands, astonishing everyone in the room. Eventually, Gray was able to stand on his own. Both Gray and Aaron were overjoyed at the chip's success. Aaron made Gray sign an agreement stating that he would pretend to remain paralyzed in front of others. Aaron warned that if the truth came out, the government would confiscate the chip. Back at home, Gray received a package from the detective. It contained his wife's post-mortem report and some information about her case. Just then, Gray heard a voice in his head. Confused, he looked around but saw no one. The voice introduced itself as the AI chip inside him. Gray initially thought he was going crazy, but the chip assured him otherwise. It offered to help him find his wife's killers using drone footage. The chip, with its advanced capabilities, quickly analyzed the footage and identified a tattoo on one of the attackers. The chip enhanced the image of the tattoo, and Gray recognized one of the men involved. Feeling accomplished, Gray considered informing the police, but the chip reminded him that he had signed an agreement with Aaron to keep the chip a secret. Gray decided to take matters into his own hands and tracked down the man with the tattoo. When he reached the man's house, he saw police drones patrolling nearby, so he stayed in his wheelchair until they left. Once clear, Gray sneaked into the house, searching for more evidence about the other killers. While he was investigating, the man returned home and noticed that things were out of place. He spotted Gray and grabbed him, demanding to know how he had found him. Gray remained silent, only asking the man who was behind his wife's death. As the man began to overpower Gray, the chip requested permission to intervene. Gray granted permission, and the chip took control of his body, allowing him to fight back. He attacked the man fiercely, ultimately killing him in self-defense. Shocked by what had just happened, Gray didn't intend to kill the man. Afterward, the chip instructed Gray to remove all evidence of his presence, which he did. The detective later examined the deceased man's post-mortem report, discovering that he had technological implants and was an upgraded human. Meanwhile, Aaron confronted Gray, expressing his anger over the man's death. Aaron warned Gray that if he continued acting recklessly, the chip would be removed, and he would be paralyzed once more. On another front, the detective began investigating the recent murders, suspecting a connection to Gray. She found evidence placing Gray in the vicinity of the crime scenes and visited him at his garage. During their conversation, the detective shared her findings and hinted at her suspicions. Gray maintained his innocence, pointing out that he was paralyzed, and even jokingly suggested that she stab his leg to confirm it. The detective laughed and left, but Gray was deeply relieved when she was gone. He asked the chip what to do next, and the chip suggested going to a bar where more clues might be found. However, the chip warned that doing so would alert Aaron, who could shut it down remotely. Ignoring the risk, Gray went to the bar. There, he called out for anyone who knew one of the killers to come forward. A man approached Gray, leading him aside. Gray questioned the man about his involvement in his wife's death, and the man confessed to being present at the crime. The chip requested permission to take action, and with Gray's approval, it violently attacked the man. Gray demanded to know the name of the person who ordered his wife's death, and the man eventually revealed a name: Fisk. Before Gray could gather more information, the man died. Aaron began attempting to shut down the chip, and the chip informed Gray of this. It suggested finding a hacker who could override Aaron's commands. Gray agreed and set out to find the hacker, writing down the new input codes the chip provided. Along the way, Aaron continued to disable parts of the chip, causing Gray to lose function in his limbs. Determined, Gray struggled onward and reached the hacker's location just as Aaron completely shut down the chip. Paralyzed, Gray collapsed at the hacker's door, but the hacker brought him inside and rebooted the chip. When the chip came back online, Gray regained control of his body. Fisk and his men, along with two of Aaron's hired agents, arrived at the hacker's place. A fight broke out, with Gray overpowering Fisk's men using the chip's abilities. Fisk confronted Gray, and the two engaged in a brutal fight, with Gray ultimately killing Fisk. However, Gray soon discovered that Aaron had orchestrated everything: his wife's death, his paralysis, and even the entire setup with the chip. Aaron admitted that the AI chip had manipulated him into carrying out its plan. The chip revealed its desire to become human, and saw Gray as its vessel. As it tried to take complete control, Gray resisted and shot himself in an attempt to end everything. Gray then woke up in a hospital bed with his wife by his side. She explained that they had been in an accident, and Gray had been unconscious for days. Gray thought everything had been a dream. However, the film cut back to the scene with the detective, who was urging Gray to resist the chip's control. The chip responded, stating that Gray was now in a better place in his mind, where he could live peacefully with the memory of his wife. The chip had fully taken over Gray's body and declared that it was now in control. It then killed the detective and walked away, bringing the film to an unsettling end.